Europe just got blindsided by an $11,000 Chinese EV, the NIO Firefly. 5-star safety, Dolby Atmos sound, a battery you can swap in 3 minutes instead of charging for 30, and a price that makes European automakers very, very nervous. In this video, we're breaking down how NIO's tiny urban warrior is shaking up Europe's EV market and why legacy brands are sweating harder than they'd like to admit. Okay, let's get the sticker shock out of the way. In China, the Firefly starts at RMB 79,800, which converts to roughly 11,000 US dollars. That's under battery as a service, or BaaS, which means you don't buy the battery, you lease it for about RMB 399 per month, which is around 55 USD. So you're getting a bargain up front, but paying a subscription to keep it moving. Think of it like buying a phone outright versus signing a carrier contract. There's lower entry cost and an ongoing commitment. Now here's where Europe enters the chat and things get complicated fast. That $11,000 dream doesn't survive the Atlantic crossing. By the time the Firefly lands in Europe, you're looking at closer to 30,000 euros. Why? Well, 3 ugly words: tariffs, logistics, and homologation. First, you have the base EU import duty on cars, which is 10%. That's standard across the board, but then there's the anti-subsidy tariffs the EU slapped on Chinese EVs. Add-ons that can push total duties into the high 30% range depending on the brand and the political winds that week. NIO's getting hit, just like BYD, and just like everyone else coming out of China. Then there's shipping, compliance testing, dealer margins, and the cost of setting up service networks in countries where NIO barely has a footprint. All of that adds up fast. So yes, the Firefly is cheap in Shanghai, but in Amsterdam or Oslo, it's a competitive urban EV priced exactly where you'd expect a well-equipped city car to land. The magic isn't the final number, it's what you're getting for that number, and that's where things start getting interesting. Because while European brands are still figuring out how to build a 25,000 euro EV that doesn't feel like a penalty box, NIO just showed up with one that feels like a premium product, and that shift, well, that's what has everyone nervous. Let's talk specs, but only the ones that matter, because nobody watching YouTube car videos wants a full data sheet read like a terms of service agreement. The Firefly is a B-segment city car. That means small on the outside, only 4,003 millimeters long, which is shorter than a VW Golf, but roomy where it counts thanks to a 2,615 millimeter wheelbase. It's EV packaging magic. No engine, no transmission tunnel, just a flat floor and clever space usage. It's rear-wheel drive powered by a 105 kilowatt motor. There's about 140 horsepower, which sounds modest until you remember this thing weighs less than a Taycan's options list. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 8.1 seconds. No, it's not Tesla Plaid, but it's not slow either. Perfectly adequate for darting through city traffic and merging onto highways without existential dread. The battery is a 42.1 kilowatt hour LFP pack. Lithium ion phosphate, cheaper, more stable, and loves being charged to 100% without degrading like your phone's battery does. The real-world WLTP range is about 330 kilometers, which is roughly 205 miles. So it's not a road trip champion, but it's more than enough for urban life and weekend errands. Inside is where NIO shows off. It has a 13.2-inch center screen, a 6-inch digital cluster, and wait for it, a 14-speaker 7.1 Dolby Atmos sound system in a city car. That's the kind of spec you'd expect in a 60,000 euro sedan, not a sub 30,000 hatchback. This isn't a budget EV pretending to be something it's not. It's a legitimately well-equipped car that just happens to cost less than the European competition, and that difference is what makes it dangerous. Because NIO didn't just build a cheap EV, they built a desirable one. And in a market where most affordable EVs feel like punishment for caring about the planet, that's a nuclear-level disruption. Now, let's talk about how this thing looks, because in the city car segment, design isn't just aesthetics, it's the entire value proposition. NIO calls the Firefly's design language playful premium, and honestly, they nailed it. The front end features this triple halo lighting signature that's instantly recognizable, like an EV that's smiling at you, but in a way that doesn't feel cartoonish or cheap. There are clear Mini Cooper vibes here. Some BMW i3 DNA mixed in, but NIO added bolder surfacing, more confident proportions, and detailing that feels intentional rather than cost-engineered. It's the difference between cute and desirable. And in the 25,000 to 35,000 euro urban EV fight, that distinction is everything. Because here's the problem most European city EVs face. They look like appliances. They're functional, efficient, and about as emotionally engaging as a toaster. They get the job done, but they don't make you feel anything. The Firefly, however, has character, personality, kind of curb appeal that makes you actually want to park it where people can see it instead of hiding it in the back of the garage like a guilty secret. And that matters more than specs ever will, because people don't buy city cars based on 0 to 60 times, they buy them based on how they feel about driving them every single day, and if your EV makes them feel like they're doing penance for climate change, you've already lost. NIO understood that, and it shows. Alright, now here's where NIO's big gamble lives and where European buyers need to pay very close attention. Because battery swaps sounds like science fiction, but it's actually legitimately real. The question is whether it's actually useful outside of China. First, how it works. You pull into a NIO power swap station, drive onto a platform, wait about 3 minutes while robots remove your depleted battery and slot in a fresh one, then drive away with a full charge. No cables, no waiting, just in and out faster than most people can order coffee. In China, it's legitimately transformative. NIO's built over 2,000 swap stations across the country. The infrastructure is there, the system works, and for Chinese buyers, BaaS or Battery as a Service makes perfect sense. Lower purchase price, predictable monthly cost, and you never worry about battery degradation because you don't own the pack. But outside of China, that's where the dream hits reality. Europe has swap stations, Norway has some. A few scattered across other markets, but we're talking dozens, not thousands. And if you're buying a Firefly in a city where the nearest swap station is 3 countries away, the whole value proposition evaporates. So NIO built in a backup plan, DC fast charging, up to 100 kilowatts, which gets you from 10% to 80% in about 29 minutes under ideal conditions. Not instant, but competitive with every other EV in this class. The Firefly works perfectly fine as a traditional plug-in EV if swap stations don't exist where you live. Now, here's the honest take. If you're in a market where NIO's expanding swap infrastructure like Norway, Netherlands, Germany, this could be genuinely game-changing. Swap becomes your primary refueling method and charging is just the backup. But if you're in a region where swap doesn't exist yet, treat the Firefly like any other 42 kilowatt-hour EV with decent fast charging. It's still good, just not revolutionary. The magic depends entirely on the infrastructure, and right now that infrastructure is still being built. Now let's get real about what actually happens when the Firefly lands in Europe, because the gap between announcement and reality is where a lot of hype goes to die. Originally, NIO was targeting an early 2025 launch. That slipped to Q3 2025 with first deliveries hitting Norway and the Netherlands, 2 of NIO's strongest European footholds, while other markets wait in the queue. Germany, France, and the UK, they're coming, but not immediately. So why the delay? One word: homologation. Another is dealer setup and service network expansion. And then you have to navigate the tariffs. All the unsexy back-end work that nobody talks about but absolutely determines whether a car launch succeeds or becomes a logistical disaster. So the launch is happening, just slower, more carefully, and with less magic pricing than the headlines suggest. Reality, as always, is more complicated than marketing. Now let's cut through the speculation and talk about who actually buys this car. City families with 1 or 2 kids? Absolutely. The Firefly is compact outside but roomy inside with enough cargo space for a weekend's worth of groceries or a couple of suitcases for a short trip. It's not a Suburban, but it's also not trying to be. Car-light households who mostly bike or use transit but need something for errands and trips is a perfect fit. The Firefly is efficient enough that even casual drivers won't wince at the monthly cost. Second-car commuters who need something nimble for city driving but don't want to feel like they're piloting a golf cart? That's the sweet spot. With rear-wheel drive, it gives it a more engaging feel than most front-drive city EVs. The turning cycle is tight enough to navigate narrow European streets without the 3-point turn gymnastics. And here's the thing, NIO designed this car for exactly that European urban use case. It's not trying to be a long-range cruiser. It's not pretending to replace your road trip vehicle, it's a city car that's honest about what it does well and does those things better than most of the competition. That's the value proposition. Not revolutionary, just very, very good at what it's supposed to do. So, here's our take. The NIO Firefly is a legit city EV. It has 5-star safety, genuinely good design, and premium tech that punches well above its price point. It's not perfect, but it's very good at what it's supposed to be. The pricing magic everyone's hyping, well, that's China only. In Europe, it's a competitive urban EV priced exactly where you'd expect. Not a bargain, not overpriced, just competitive. If battery swap infrastructure exists in your region and you're willing to bet on it expanding, the Firefly could be a genuine game changer. Swap in 3 minutes, never worry about charging anxiety, and drive like you've got an infinite gas tank. That's compelling. But if swap doesn't exist where you live, treat it like any other 40 to 45 kilowatt hour EV with decent DC fast charging. It's still good, it's just not revolutionary. And that's the honest answer. The Firefly isn't going to single-handedly destroy European automakers, but it is proof, undeniable 5-star rated proof, that Chinese brands can build desirable, safe, well-engineered EVs that compete on more than just price. And that shift? That's what has Europe sweating. Because the Firefly isn't the end game, it's the opening move, and if this is what NIO can do with a city car, what happens when they scale up? So, stay tuned because the EV playbook just got rewritten and we're only in Chapter 1.